You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject you've tuned in to hear from is the one and only Mille Petrozza from the German legends, Kreator. The reason for the chat was to promote the 2017 tour of Australia with Polish legends Vader. So let's have a listen to what Mille has to say. Here we go. Had a chat in February about your excellent new album for 2017, which of course is the wonderful Gods of Violence, and you alluded to an Australian tour with another excellent band back then. Lo and behold, here I am talking to you about a tour in September with Vader, who are a brilliant band, by the way, and I caught up with Peter not too long ago about the tour. So can you tell us a bit about the live show, and in your own words, what can fans expect?
Oh, they can expect a lot of energy. They can expect a lot of brutality and a lot of sweat and a lot of mosh pits. So if you're into a night of total violence and destruction and chaos, come to the show.
Well, sounds like a good night out for me then, mate, and I'll definitely be in the crowd. So, mate, how long between drinks has it been for you coming down to Australia?
I think the last time we were there was in either 2013 or 2012 or something with Death Angel. I need to look it up, but sometimes around 3-4 years ago.
Okay, and it would be remiss of me not to ask, how do Australian fans and how does the Australian audience compare to the rest of the world, particularly over there in Europe?
To us, it's the most exotic country because it's on the other end of the world from where we are at. And being in comparing different audiences from all over the world is not my thing, really. I mean, there's people that love metal are very much the same. The difference between the Australian audience is probably the mentality. People are very laid back, very dedicated, and they love them. You know, that's all I can say. And it's always great to come to Australia because it's very nicely organized and things just work. And but there's still the right amount of chaos and violence at the show where in a nice way. People are very respectful and
yes, they
like the fact that bands come and play. And we don't go to Australia that often, and every time we go, we experience a warm welcome.
All right, so for the Australian people that are listening there, let's make sure we put out the red carpet and make Kreator and Vader feel welcome, because I'll certainly be there, and I might even come out of mosh retirement for this one, mate. I haven't moshed in many years. So I do want to do that. So I'll tell you what I want to do from here, Millie, if it's okay. I want to conduct a bit of a different interview, okay? In that I'd love to ask for your thoughts on Kreator albums that are both underappreciated and unknown. So first of all, I want to provide a bit of context, okay? So I recently reviewed the new Venom Inc. album, and I went back and re-listened to the albums from 1989's Primeval to The Wastelands, it was released in 92. All of these albums had Tony Dolan, a.k.a. the Demolition Man, up front, and there is some serious gold there. Kreator is the same. Now, your albums from 1992's Renewal to 1999's Endorama are definitely overlooked. They are unique, and in my view, they're high quality, but they do contain a variation of what would be considered the traditional Kreator sound, and it's probably fair to say polarise some fans and critics. So I do have a lot of international listeners, so only a small fraction, to be honest, of my listeners do come from Australia.
Okay.
Most of my listeners come from overseas, so I try to make my interviews as broad as I possibly can. So is it okay with you that if I ask you a few questions about the albums that were released during this period?
No, go ahead, man.
All right, awesome. Here we go. So starting with Renewal, what factoids can you share with listeners about the album, and how do you feel about that album today?
I feel when I listen to Renewal, it takes me back to a time where we were totally trying to explore new fields in music. We were trying to break boundaries. We felt you gotta understand that at the time we wrote Renewal, we just came out of a 5 years touring circle where we released 5 albums in 5 years. And if you look at the time when Renewal came out, it was the first time we ever gotten 2 years in between albums. So
Yes, yes.
we were experimenting, we felt like, okay, we were still like very young band. We were still like 23, 20, 24. And we were like, okay, let's do something else, man. We've been doing this for so long, and let's add some of our hardcore, goth wave, industrial influences, and come up with something fresh and exciting. And that's how I see Renewal. And when I listen to it, I can still hear that.
Excellent. Okay, so there's some context there for the listener. I ended up getting into you guys through this album here, which is 1995's release, Cause for Conflict. And it is the album that features the samurai-themed video for the track Isolation. Now, that was a unique record, and that many fans felt that it was the sharpest departure from the band's signature sound, at least to that date through the 80s. So what are your thoughts when you look back on that one?
The Cause of Conflict, that's an album that I have a little bit of a problem with, because we had this lineup at the time. Half of my band left. I mean, the core members left.
Yes.
Rob Fioretti was my bass player has been my bass player forever, and Ventor has left the band at this period. And I had like new people in the band, and these people were trying to like not take over, but it was very chaotic. The whole how do I put this? I mean, I like some of the songs on the record, but the vibe on this album is very aggressive, very strong, and very brutal. But it also brings back like bizarre memories. And I think it's a good album. It has some good songs. Production could be better. All in all, it's a part of Kreator's history.
Yes, yeah, good point. Yep. Okay, the next album, Outcast, was released in 1997 during a very challenging time for heavy metal. Indeed, the late 90s was not kind to a lot of bands. Now, the video to Leave This World Behind reminds me of the video accompanying Morbid Angel's 1993 classic, God of Emptiness, and you did something very smart in the album cover, in that the band's famously scripted logo was clearly visible, yet you had the band name printed in legible font as well. So I'll ask you this question. Were you under management or label pressure to change the band's logo at this point in your career? And indeed, what's your thoughts on that particular episode of the band's career?
They never tried to. I think we were signed to a major label at the time, and I remember we had like all kinds of discussion what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and I felt very uncomfortable. But I wouldn't want to fuck them. I wouldn't want to fuck with the label, the logo of the band. I never wanted to do that, and I never did. So of course we wanted to do something artistically challenging for Outkast, because it was a Dogma. It was the first of our Dogma albums. We were very influenced by Lars von Trier on that album. So visually and musically, this is more like we wanted to have like go strip it all down. Go back to basics. Have an album where there's not much solos and not so much speed, and have a mid-tempo album. And in order to make that kind of thing, that kind of like experiment exciting, we had this guy that did the cover art, and it was very hard to come up with, but because it was all like done analog, there was no computer animation. So I think he came up with this carving on a wooden carving or something. And but when I look back on this album, it definitely also has its own vibe, and it features one of our best songs, Phobia, which we still.
You're still in your set.
Yes.
Okay, that's excellent. Good to know, actually, that one there, because it was an album that I listened to quite a bit. I got into metal in the 90s, and, of course, as I mentioned, it was a challenging time for a lot of bands, and with all due respect to Dave Mustaine and Megadeth, even some bands like Megadeth lost the plot a little bit and ended up sort of coming back into the metal fold. But one point that I want to stress to the listener is none of these albums could be considered anything else other than metal, in my view. Would you agree with that, Mille?
No, it's definitely those are metal albums, man. I mean, it's Kreator
Yeah.
still, you know. And as long as I'm singing and I'm the singer-songwriter of this band, it's always going to sound like metal. There's no way around that.
That's a good thing. That's a great thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now onto the final album in the series, and this is the excellent Endorama, highly underrated release. Now, it is an album that features Tilo Wolff from Lacrimosa. There's a bit of that goth influence that I think you were alluding to earlier, and I feel that the album was way ahead of its time. It's actually an album that I feel that could be released right now and be current and very modern. We did have a chat about the likely inclusion of some tracks from this album on the upcoming Australian tour when we last had a chat. So, again, what's your views on that record and that episode of the band's career?
Endorama to me sounds like very much like a tribute to like a lot of the goth bands that we were listening to when we were really young, like Suicides and Banshees, Fields of the Nephilim in particular. Yes. And we wanted to take it to the next level on the melodic level because we had Tommy Fetterly playing with us, and on Outcast he was already on the album, but he wasn't featured enough. And me and him, we had this vision of coming up with an album that's almost like a mix between metal and goth, but you know, and at the time there was a lot of goth metal bands, and we hated most of them, you know, and we were like, we need to make an album that's better than all that. And I think that was the vibe on the record, and it was the vibe for the production. We wanted to come up with a great metal album that has goth influences rather than having listening to like a dark voice with typical metal riffs. We were going into a lot of like these spherical like pickings, guitar harmonies, and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was
nice,
pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I did too. Yeah, I listen to that album quite a lot, actually, even to this day. I put it on as background music and as music that I can actively listen to and really get involved to. So, mate, I think you've created a bit of a undiscovered gem there with that album. So for anybody listening, I do encourage you to discover the album. It is available via streaming services. I'm on iTunes or Apple iTunes, you know, the Apple streaming service. And final question about the album series before I move on, mate, is both Renewal and Cause for Conflict aren't on available via Apple Music. Is there a reason for that, or is it like a contractual thing where they couldn't be released for those purposes, or is it just one of those things?
It's one of those things that I don't know about.
Fair enough. Well, I could definitely catch them on YouTube because I checked before the interview. So they're on YouTube for anybody listening, but they're just not on Apple Music, which I know a lot of people out there who subscribe do source their metal through. But mate, my final question about the album series there through the 90s was more of a statement that I'll get you to share your opinion on. Is this? If I were to have a say in the tracks from the era that could be included in the set list, here is what I'd pick. So from Endorama, I'd go with Chosen Few. From Outcast, I'd choose Leave This World. Leave This World Behind, sorry. From Cause for Conflict, I'd choose The Brutal Men Without God. Jesus, that's a cracker of song, that one. And finally, I can't decide between the title track or Europe After Dark from Renewal, so how about we include both? But what are your thoughts?
It's great. Those are the songs that I would pick as well.
Cool.
It might be a little tricky with a couple of songs because, like I said, my drummer has a little bit of an issue with the songs of Cause for Conflict because he hadn't played on it. So that's why, Leave This World Behind we did a couple times. We never played Men Without God, I think, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm. That's a cracker of a song, that one there, mate. That's
I like that song too. And Endorama, the song Chosen Few, my drummer has a little bit of a problem playing that beat, but so that's why he doesn't. He's not a big fan.
Oh, there you
go.
Oh, hey, here's a good question for you. Now, you might have already done this. I just might not have researched a topic before having a chat to you. But have you ever been approached, or have you ever done any acoustic performances of any tracks from any era of Kreator?
Fortunately not. I would do it with Sami. Sami is a great. He has great skills on the acoustic guitar. I don't. I'm more of a rhythm guitar player. I can play acoustic guitar, of course, but no, not really.
Okay.
But I would like to, maybe one day.
Mate, food for thought. Yeah, I'd love to see you do something like that because I do think you've got a very intense voice and I think it would lend itself to acoustic music because I don't think you're anything other than a heavy metal frontman. There's no doubt about that. But I just have a feeling it'd go over quite well. So, as I say, mate, food for thought.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about that anyway.
Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, so I've only got a little bit of time left. So when we last spoke, I did ask you about your time with Chuck Schuldiner. So everybody who's listening will know who Chuck Schuldiner is, but just in case there are a few non-metal fans listening, Chuck Schuldiner was the mastermind behind Death and Control Denied, and Mille played on the Voodoo Cult albums with Chuck. So what are your recollections of Chuck, and how would you describe your time with him?
He was just a great guy to be around, man. He had this positive vibe. He had this attitude. He was one of those metal guys were very exceptional, and I'm not just saying that because he's dead or something, and you don't talk shit of that people that have died. He was just a great guy. It was just fun to be around. Every time we played Florida, and I got to run into Chuck, and he came to our bus, we had just amazing times, And he had a great sense of humor, and he was very laid back, very cool, very very fun guy, man.
Okay, sweet. Yep. You mentioned as much when we last caught up, but I just wanted to... When we last caught up, I didn't record it for a podcast. I did a print article, but I've since switched to podcasting. So I thought it would be cool for people who haven't had context on your relationship with Chuck to actually hear it. So thanks for that.
Okay.
Okay, I've got my final question now, and it is split into 3 parts, okay? So this is all about you, Mille. So here we go. And by the way, your answers can be as not safe for work as you like because I do host an R-rated program. So Mille Petrozza from Kreator, choose 3 words to describe yourself.
Wow.
The curveball.
Just chill out, relax, and positive maybe. Chill out. I think I'm pretty chill, I guess.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Definitely comes across. Okay, next question is, if you could go back to when you were 18 years of age, what advice do you think you'd give yourself?
Keep going. Don't give up.
Nice. That was quick too, man. That's about the quickest I've ever had anybody answer that question, so well done. And final question is, what 5 guests, living or dead, from any time in history, would you invite to dinner?
I would love to talk to Carl Sagan, the inventor of the Cosmos TV show.
Yes.
I would love to talk to maybe Jim Morrison because I like his lyrics. Who else? So many great people, man, in the history of the world. Maybe Chuck Schuldiner. He would be a great guy for dinner.
Nice sentiment.
And I have Cliff Burton. I really liked his hippie vibe. I've never met the guy. Mm-hmm. And maybe Ozzy Osbourne or something, just for the entertainment.
That's a good list. I reckon Carl would be Carl Sagan would be the funniest one there as well. I hear that he had a cracking sense of humour. So.
Absolutely.
Mate, great list. And look, I better let you go, but I just want to congratulate you on a phenomenal career. I will definitely be in the crowd. I don't know whether we'll have the opportunity, but I'd love to shake your hand and buy you a beer or have a beer with you, mate, whatever comes first.
Right. I hope we can organise this, man. It would be cool.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. And, well, look, all the best until we see you down here in Australia. And once again, congratulations.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject you just heard from was Mille Petrozza from the German outfit Kreator. Thank you so much for listening.